Welcome to Getcha Rocks Off with Mick Wall, the world's leading rock and metal writer. Each week, he'll unpack stories that you won't find in print. So pour yourself a Jack and Coke and get ready to Getcha Rocks Off. This episode is brought to you by the Getcha Store. For all of your Getcha Rocks Off merch, including t-shirts, face masks, and yep, Hotel Tropicana coffee mugs, head over to getchastore.com.
Hello, my name is David Coverdale, and I'm here today to introduce you to my very good friend, Michael Wall, and his very good friend, Jonathan Houghton. Isn't that correct, Jonathan?
David Coverdale sort of sounds a bit like the character of a tortoise in a children's cartoon. That's very much how you'd voice that, I think.
I tell you what.
Are you auditioning for voiceover work? Are you available?
I am always available. Baby.
Yeah.
I read this quote about Sharon Osbourne, who just lost her gig on American television after being accused of being racist.
Yeah.
And there was a fantastic quote from someone saying she'll never work again. And then someone who works for her said, dude, Sharon doesn't go looking for work. The work comes looking for her.
Does it?
And that's something
she's going to end up on GB News or something like that, as all old white people who've said something vaguely racist do.
Or cancel TV.
Yeah, cancel TV when you're on with Katie Hopkins and
and our president, Trump.
Yeah, Trump. Good old
They stole
Trump.
the election.
It's weird, isn't it? It's like all gone quiet on the Trump front.
Yeah.
He's
well, don't say that too often because it will change.
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, this is the Getcha Rocks Off podcast. John and me, and today, we're going to talk about John. We're going to talk about probably your all-time favourite group today, aren't we?
We are.
Not Merino. Sorry, your second favourite all-time.
Marillion. Is it Marillion Day today?
Third.
Oh, come on.
You were just singing one of their songs. Open up.
I thought we were doing Iron Maiden.
You said Journey.
Yeah, we're doing Journey and we're doing What
are we doing?
I thought we were doing Iron Maiden, then Journey.
Okay, right. So... we are doing the Maiden, but here's the twist, okay?
Take two.
Here's the twist. We're going to do Maiden the Dickinson years, okay? Because otherwise...
the other years be a fucking short podcast.
No, I disagree. You could do an early years, including the first two stupendous albums. Then you could do a 90s era, including... the two stupendous Blaze Bayley albums, or you can just go Dickinson 1, Dickinson 2. Because my contention is that even though critics of The Maiden will argue that all their albums sound the same in the same way that they say that about AC/DC, my contention is that there is a very clear distinction between The Maiden of the first Bruce era and the Maiden of the second Bruce era.
They all sound exactly the same. You could pull any track from any era of the Maiden with Bruce, and that's the appeal of it. That's why it's good, is because it sounds of one creation. It's almost as it's like the universe.
Well, you say that.
It's like the universe. Okay, it's like this guy did this amazing explanation of how the universe expands, right? And he said, what you've got to imagine is...
Was his name Steve Harris?
His name was Stephen Hawking. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. Stephen Hawking, the most heavy metal voice ever. I have just programmed this lecture. He goes, what you've got to imagine is that the universe is like imagine you're inflating a balloon, like you're blowing up a balloon. And
or a condom.
You always have to bring it down, don't you?
No,
Here's a lovely analogy.
Widening the discussion.
Here's a lovely analogy. And you bring it down
right.
You're blowing up a balloon, and imagine our solar system has a series of dots to indicate the planets and so on, and then the wider Milky Way, and then the universe beyond that, the nether zone and so on.
Is that cocoa?
And as you blow the balloon up, everything becomes everything goes further apart from each other. So you get that.
And what's
right?
that got to do with the Maiden?
Well, the Maiden, all of their albums are getting further and further apart from one another. I mean, they've been going for donkey's years and years, but they're all still exactly the same as they were. They're just further apart.
But are they?
It's like the Father Ted thing. Is it big or is it further or is it far away? It's just far away.
You see, Father Ted, they actually wrote one of the all-time classic, but as yet unrecorded, Iron Maiden songs, Little Horse. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. They were up all night writing that. Yeah. But here's the thing, okay, is you say that about the Maiden.
I do say that.
But here's what I say. Now, and let me finish. I say, first era, Run to the Hills, Number of the Beast, Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. Hallowed Be Thy Name, 2 Minutes to Midnight. Wasted Years. I could go on. Right. Second era of Bruce. Crickets. Tumbleweed. Where's the hits? I can't name you a single hit from the second era. Go on, name one.
I can't. But
there you go.
Whether or not they're hits is irrelevant. They still sound the same. That was my only point.
No. All right, okay.
It's not as if they've gone through some kind of radical rethink in between part A and part B.
Where are the classics?
Well, they might, but that's a function of time, isn't it? So you might as well say that about all bands.
I do say that about all bands.
You constantly say that. Who wants to hear the new album from Metallica or whatever?
No one does.
Because they don't, and they don't.
No.
Where were the hits on Death Magnetic or whatever?
Well, that was a rubbish album.
Exactly. Where were the hits on the
last good album they did? Was Lulu.
Last
Lou
good
Reed,
album they
as
did.
You were just saying.
Fucking black. They are doing one with Elton John. I mean, that that
Goodbye Black Road.
That might have a good few hits on it, I would imagine.
Yeah, what would it be called? Don't Shoot Me. I'm only the bear hunting reformed alcoholic.
Yeah, something like.
Don't shoot me. I'm just the over-entitled tennis prodigy.
Is Bernie Taupin involved? Elton John's involved. Is Bernie involved?
Bernie's working with Axl.
Because we saw in the Metallica film the problem they have with lyrics when they invited Kirk Hammett to write one and the bloke who was doing their psychotherapy.
What did Kirk come up with?
He came up with something like, "This is my life day, the same as my death day."
Oh yeah, and they actually recorded it, didn't they?
They did. In the want for something else, they actually did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Okay, I think you're evading the point slightly. If you go and see the Maiden play live tomorrow, what of the we're going to call it Mark II Dickinson era? What single song in the Mark II era would they put into the encores?
Well, I don't know.
I do know.
Go on then.
None.
Well, yeah, they probably wouldn't. No, I mean, but I would go and see them play Mother Russia and stuff like that, which would be better than seeing them play Run to the Hills for the 957th time.
Well, see, no, in the actuality, Run to the Hills remains one of the all-time greatest metal songs of all time.
It is,
and it's an all-time
and it has
time.
on its side what Paranoid has on its side, in that it's quite short. So when you do go to the gig, the many, many gigs, and if you happen, like the great Mick Wall, if you happen to be on the road with the Maiden and enjoying their show every night for weeks on end, taking notes, at least when they get to Run to the Hills, you know it isn't Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. You know it's not going on for the next 13 minutes.
I was always partial to Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
I know you were.
I'll tell you what else I love. And this is beyond the Dickinson era, is I'm running free, yeah. I'm running free.
in the list of other conversations we always have is about Paul Di'Anno and people who say...
Yeah, you don't like Paul Di'Anno.
It's not... Yeah, no, I don't
Yeah,
like
but
Paul
I
Di'Anno.
do. I love Paul Di'Anno. Me and Paul.
You're going to say the thing that everyone says, oh, yeah, they were really punk. They sounded really punk when it was...
Yeah, that's right.
To which I say, oh, no... I mean, who wants to listen to punk rock?
I'm running free.
Whoever listens to punk rock for more than one or two songs? I mean, it's unlistenable.
But that's the same criticism people would level at Mark II Dickinson Maiden. Or what you might like to call New Variant Maiden.
New Variant Maiden. No, I just think... It happens to all artists of whatever hue, doesn't it? I mean, if you took the course of a novelist, you have an early explosion of vital work that kind of like the Big Bang. Later, they get very good at their craft. You read their later books, and they're beautifully structured. There's not a word out of place, but they don't quite have that essential spark of madness that they had at the very start.
Another one. Can I play with madness?
The prophet stirred the crystal. But that's why they all get there, because, they're all written on bass. There's only so many songs you can write on the bass.
Okay, well, let's break it down. Era 1 of The Maiden.
Yeah.
With Dickinson, Era 1.
Let's talk about Samson first of all. Where's Bruce comes from? Because here's the interesting thing. Maiden are this East End band, aren't they? They come out of the East End.
East End of London.
There's Steve Harris, who's lived with his nan or whatever it was. Oh, it wasn't. He was allowed to rehearse at his nan's house.
We're not doing the early days.
We're not
That's
doing.
another podcast.
But I'm just setting the scene.
I'm talking Bruce Dickinson era Maiden.
I'm just setting the scene, Mr. Interruption.
We don't need to set
You've got one faction of the band that is this East End, hard living, heavy band. Then you got Bruce, who was at the time known as Bruce.
Because that was hilarious.
Yeah, because that was hilarious. And had been in Samson, who had
who were also hilarious. Didn't they have Thunderstick
and Paul Sampson on guitar, obviously.
Yeah,
And Thunderstick on the drums.
That's right. They could have called themselves Thunderstick.
Lest you think Samson were named after the biblical figure. No. They were named after Paul Samson.
Yeah, it wasn't until you said that I thought, oh yeah, there was the other Samson, wasn't there? And you saying that makes me think, well, because the other Samson, when you cut his hair, he lost his strength. See, that's a nice metaphorical image, isn't it, for metal? Particularly then, the new wave of British.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
But here's the thing.
What I point out is when Bruce joins the band, there's a kind of radical shift, because you've got this very different character entering the band with his own style and his own ideas, which marries brilliantly with what Steve Harris wants to do.
Yes.
Because Steve, although all joking aside, they did have that kind of punkish edge with Di'Anno. All of a sudden, the melodic side of Steve Harris comes out, and what you get is this new melodic but very, very heavy British heavy metal.
I think they definitely ticked more boxes with the international market, because Paul Di'Anno, my feeling with Paul wasn't
who we're not talking about.
My feeling with him wasn't so much that he was punk. I think that is just the way he sang. Bruce, with the long hair, and with that much more Gillan-esque or Ronnie James Dickinson, let's be fair, Bruce Dio.
He wasn't that good. Not in the same league. He's not in the Ronnie league.
But he came...
No,
that's true. But he came from that tradition, if you like.
Yeah, he did the... Whoa,
yeah. Rather a lot of it, in fact.
Yeah. And I'll bail out at this point. But there's that bit in Run to the Hills.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah. Run to the...
See, both of us got our fists in the air. We're doing that. I've never do that. I don't even know why I'm doing that.
Well, it's because they're running through dust clouds and barren plains, whatever it was.
Oh, you know the words.
Well, I know that bit.
Yeah. I didn't know that bit.
Yeah, it's a tremendous story of the old Wild West.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
What you mean, like Red Indians?
Yeah,
Cowboys and Red Indians.
Yeah, and other terminology that has since become defunct.
But not in the Wild West days.
Not in the Wild West.
That's what they called them back
Bruce
then.
still sings those words.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
So seriously though, talk about a run of amazing albums. Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, which I still think is one of their best, Power Slave.
That was when they went Egyptian, wasn't it?
Somewhere in Time, and then Seventh Son
of a Seventh Son. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Yeah, that one.
Who's drumming here? Is that
Nico?
No, I'm Nico because I'm doing two. You're Clive Edwards' school. You're just doing one.
Yeah, Clive Burr.
Oh yeah, Clive Burr. Yeah. See, it's a little known fact that Clive Edwards
presents the BBC News, I think you'll find.
No, Clive Edwards was the drummer of Wild Horses.
Oh, was he?
A very good drummer. Very good drummer. So, yeah, now that's a run of albums. I mean, I know not long after that, well, straight after Seventh Son, Adrian Smith leaves. And that, to me, becomes a certain cut-off point because Adrian brought an aesthetic, if you like, to Maiden that was irreplaceable. They lost it when he left.
Yeah.
And in fact, people would always say, well, Bruce was the outlier, the disruptor, because he wanted to, for want of a better word, Bruce wanted to be more credible, wanted to bring in influences that weren't just straight ahead heavy metal, and failed, it has to be said. Whereas Adrian, without making a big show of it, actually did bring that broader kind of musical references in. I mean, Ryan Adams does a fantastic version of Wasted Years.
Yes, he
where
does.
you suddenly realise what a
song.
fantastic song that is.
Yeah.
There's an old music biz maxim that says the sign of a truly great song, even if it's Bohemian Rhapsody or whatever it is if you can play it on an acoustic guitar and sing it.
Yeah. Well, there's also Damien Wilson, who is the singer in, he's Threshold and lots of kind of heavy metal bands, but he's had this most amazing career, Damien Wilson, where he's also sung in Les Miserables, and he's in an Iron Maiden tribute band, an acoustic Iron Maiden tribute band. And he does a version of The Evil That Men Do. That's fantastic because him and an acoustic guitar slowed right down, and it's so good. And you just realize, that's a great song.
They wrote great songs. Yeah. I mean, Seventh Son had at least 3 big hit singles on it.
Yeah.
Evil That Men Do, Can I Play With Madness?
Yes, yeah.
And the other one?
What's
the other one?
Oh, it was great.
We just sang it, didn't we?
It was brilliant. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
No, there was another one. I can't remember what. Yeah,
there was.
That one we all know. We don't need to name it.
We don't even need to mention it.
We don't even have to mention. We know what we're. It's that well known.
That's right.
That's
right. Yeah.
And then there's this.
But let's get into the actuality, because every time Iron Maiden released an album, which was because Kerrang! Magazine, where we both worked at the time, this early phase of Maiden, the classic era, the release of an Iron Maiden album would be huge because they were the reader's favourite band. Every time there was a poll, a reader's poll once every year, favourite band, always Iron Maiden, and they were just untouchable. They would win this poll by streets. And I could never always really work it out because there were these other great bands around, but it was always Maiden had this grip on the consciousness. So it was a big moment when they released an album, and there would be this big build-up with their tremendous manager, Rod Smallwood, who would, for weeks on end would be teasing and priming the press with little snippets of what was going to happen.
He was always very subtle as well.
Yeah,
It's bloody great.
It's bloody great, and if you don't put it on the cover, I'll come round there, yeah. But no, I mean, Rob would sort of take you out to lunch and tell you about the album, and by the time you actually got to hear it, you'd have been living with it in your mind for weeks. So it was really well marketed. And then will come the great moment that it was ready to be appraised. It was ready to be appraised by rock's leading critic.
Pure objectivity.
Rod would phone Jeff Barton, and as if by magic, Nick Wall, who never wrote album reviews, would be summoned down from his Valhalla in the Sunset Marquee.
It's true.
Nick, come in from the pool. The tape of the Maiden album's here.
That's
and you would be required to appraise it.
I would, and I always was exceedingly fair, objective. In no way.
No. I think the greatest moment came when Seventh Son of a Seventh Son got 7 Ks.
And every single one of those deserved.
Yes, well earned. Yes.
Well earned.
Yeah.
7 out of 5.
7 out of 5.
That's right.
From the Mick Wall jury.
That's right.
Yeah.
And well, in fairness, I thought it was their best album at that point.
You did.
And
you said so.
And I think I'm still saying so. I think the thing about it being an event, though, was also reflective of this incredible relationship they had with their fans.
Yes, yeah, which is, I suppose, what I'm trying to drive at, and that this incredible popularity they always had.
And I think that would not have happened in the same way at that time had it not been for punk. Not because Maiden were punk influenced, but in the 70s, Sabbath, Zeppelin, Deep Purple, they really were perceived to be sort of on some kind of Valhalla.
Yeah.
You didn't have the feeling you'd go and have a pint with them.
Exactly, whereas I think people thought they could do with Steve Harris.
And he completely promoted that.
Even as he departed in the limousine.
Wow. No, I tell you what, though.
No, he wasn't. I'm joking.
Steve is one of the most authentic.
He really is, yeah.
Steve is one of the most authentic rock stars I've ever met, because sometimes to his detriment, you might say, because he absolutely is what he is, and that's the end of that, like it or lump it. And I think fans respond very positively to that, because authenticity, you can't fake it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
You can smell authenticity.
Yeah.
And I think also in 1980, at a time when, similar to post-grunge, if you like, the reason Di'Anno had short hair was because no one had long hair anymore.
Yeah.
Suddenly, here's this guy. I mean, Phil Mogg didn't have particularly long hair. Phil Lynott had an afro. Rob Halford didn't have any hair. Yeah. No, he did have hair at the time, but it wasn't.
A few wispy bits.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah. I mean, or Bon Scott. I mean, Bon did have long hair at one point, but it was more mullety.
Yeah.
We had come from the Robert Plant. Even Ozzy had tremendously long hair. That era was gone. Suddenly, here comes Steve Harris, a bit like Cliff Burton.
Yeah.
Really long, straight hair.
Yeah.
Tattoos.
Yeah. Wristband.
Yeah. I'm going to ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling.
But you see, you're right. It was that amazing connection you had, which I suppose I was driving that when I would say they would always win the readers' poll. And you try and work out what the connection is, but it was Steve, because he also kept this iron grip on everything Maiden did. I mean, I'm sure we'll come on to the legendary occasion on which Bruce came round your flat to play you the songs he'd written for the Iron Maiden album.
Now, we'll mention that in a minute.
Yeah.
We may have told that story before, but we'll mention it.
It's indicative of the grip that Steve had and the control that Steve had on the creativity of the band, because he was the one with that antennae that sensed what was right for Maiden, what worked and what didn't. And as you say, you can't fake that. You can't try and understand it. You can't send it to a focus group to understand. It's just something he got naturally.
Absolutely, and I think all the greats, in a way, whether it's Metallica, they had that for at least the first 5 albums. When I was growing up, the big rock monsters were Sabbath, Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and because you didn't really see them on Top of the Pops, or they weren't going to be on the radio with their latest. I mean, Purple had some hits, but that wasn't what they were known for. They were known, that kind of distance, that mystique was part of the enjoyment. Suddenly, there's this world of Iron Maiden, and then a bit later, Metallica. Motorhead might be another good example of this. I don't want to say populist, because I don't think Steve ever was about populism. He was about excellence. It was just that his excellence was very, very rigorous. And I remember going out when they were doing Somewhere in Time. They were in Holland, and I went out there, whatever. And he was playing me the stuff, and he was saying, he goes, "This is what I do." He goes, I judge on whether a track will be on the Maiden album. Number one, do I like it? Number 2,
Have I written it?
will the fans like it?
Number 3, has Bruce written it?
Now, number 1, do I like it? Number 2, will the fans like it?
Yeah.
Number 3, the critics. He goes, but in a way down there. But mainly it was, if he didn't like it, that's the end of the story right there. But once he likes it, is it an Iron Maiden song? Is it something Iron Maiden fans will give wholeheartedly to? And I've often argued in the past that that's an attitude to song creation that I'm not big on, because I like the idea, more romantic idea, if you like, that you create a wonderful piece of work and people will come, as opposed to who is my audience, let's tailor it towards that. But Steve was able to do that to the nth degree, to the point where it did cross a line sometimes into Mother Russia,
Yeah, well, you know,
or
you're
Alexander
right.
the Great.
I was thinking about it because I suppose the one thing everyone knew about Steve, if ever he was asked about his favourite band, is as an example, he's a big fan of Jethro Tull, wasn't he? And you would, as you say, with most musicians, once they got to a certain point of success, they begin to indulge their own fantasies of, Axl being a great example. You know, all of a sudden he goes from this, warlike intensity of Appetite for Destruction, and he's off doing Queen and Elton John and all that, because that's his influence and that's what he really likes.
He's gone.
Steve Harris has never turned up with the new Iron Maiden going, let me bring you songs from the woods, with his acoustic guitar. He's never let that influence show, even though he's loved it, and he loves Genesis and he loves that kind of stuff.
And Golden Earring.
Yeah,
That's when he's like, down, down, down.
Oh,
now you know where he got
yeah,
it from.
Yeah.
Right. Are you not instantly au fait with Radar Love?
Radar Love.
Oh,
Yeah, I do. Not your
the
version
bass.
of it. The actual song Radar Love, I know that.
Yeah, but I'm breaking it down.
Yeah,
I'm breaking it down for you, see?
into its individual notes,
particularly the bass.
Unrecognisable. But Arry never did that, did he? He never came out with his sort of, his Saucy Jack or whatever. He really never made his concept album with the London Philharmonic.
No, absolutely.
It was always
and when
straight
Bruce,
down the line.
When Bruce did a solo album, I remember saying to Steve, because you feel obliged, you go, well, would you ever do a solo album? And he was like, these weren't his exact words, but his correct response was, Iron Maiden are my solo album.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I mean, you do get that with guys in bands where, you sort of think, it's sort of a bit like sort of Tony Banks in Genesis or something, where essentially Genesis is his solo work. All the others went off and had quite big solo careers. Tony never did, because Genesis was essentially his thing.
And also because I think he did try.
He did. He made a few albums, but they sounded exactly like Genesis,
but without
albums.
the benefit of having Genesis on there.
Yeah, exactly.
Phil Collins singing it.
Exactly.
Did you ever see that single Tony Banks did with Fish?
No, I remember it now.
Fantastic.
You say it. Yeah.
It was a 12-inch single with a picture sleeve. And Tony Banks, like most people, not like most people. Tony Banks is not a tall person, okay?
Yeah.
Fish is a very tall person. Tony Banks is quite sort of English and I don't want to say weedy, but professorial. And then there's Fish, this huge, big, fat Scotsman. And the picture cover was Tony is standing there in a Marillion T-shirt, and Fish is standing next to him about 4 feet taller, huge belly, in a Genesis T-shirt.
Yeah.
And it was like, and they're both kind of like doing these gormless grins, and it was like, and actually that leads back to Maiden. I remember Rod, early on with Maiden, they were doing some photos with someone, and he went, "Stop bloody smiling! You're not bloody smiling! Pictures." And I thought, that's interesting, isn't it? And that Fish and Tony Banks are both gurning and being matey, and there's nothing sexy or mysterious about it. Maiden would be like that.
Yeah, they would be. They would have that. But then I think the whole thing with both Bruce eras is Dickinson, for whatever reason, and I fully understand it, because he's a bit of a Renaissance man himself. We use the term loosely. I don't know what. He's held a sword and attempted to write a book, but And he flies planes. I mean, yeah, a clever guy. He's got man of many talents. But he's constrained by Steve's vision. And Steve's vision is Rod's vision. And he's he wants to break out of that. He wants his own outlet. He's not like sort of Adrian Smith or Dave Murray, who are content to write a couple of songs on the album or whatever.
Well, Adrian was, but he left
but then
first.
Adrian leaves and does his thing, but comes back, doesn't he? Obviously, but what my point is with Bruce is that I think he sees himself as probably the third wheel there. You've got Steve, you've got Bruce, you've got Rod. Those three are the kind of power unit behind the band.
Well, I think that was the problem in era one.
Yeah,
more.
Not in the second.
Because
I
they've
think it's
reconciled
different.
their
They had very much so, and I know Bruce and Rod are sort of very close. I think they, in sitcom style, lived next door to one another for a while or something, which would have been very funny,
I remember being in a car with Rod and Bruce. I don't know what show it was. Some show in London, not Maiden, and. Maybe it was Wasp or something. Yeah. Rod managed them, didn't he? But it's sort of a Rod night out, but it's not Maiden. And we're driving back in the car. And because Bruce used to live in Chiswick, which was the next suburb to Ealing, where I lived, they're dropping me first, and then Rod's taking Bruce home. And it's pissing with rain. And
they dropped you first because they didn't want you to come in. Yeah. Oh, Christ. Yeah, Ealing is further out, but we don't fucking want him.
Thank God he's gone. We can talk now, right?
We'll have to let him in,
That was clearly the thing, except Bruce is drunk, okay? And Live After Death has just come out a few weeks before.
Oh, there we go.
The live
double live album.
And they're driving, and I'm in the back seat, and Bruce has had a few to drink, so he's not...
Bruce isn't driving.
No, Rod is driving. Rod has also had a lot to drink, but he's a Yorkshireman. He was drinking before he could shave. Of course he can drive. And Bruce is going, so what's the latest figures on the album in America? And Rod, conscious of the fact I'm in the back, is going...
with your journalistic notepad. Not just collapsed drunk in the back, burbling.
And... Rod is like, we're just coming up to the 750,000 mark, which if you think about it with the bloke in the probably means we might sell 500,000 if we're lucky. He goes, we're just coming up to the 750 mark. And Bruce is like, what? Is that all? Is that all? And Rod's like, well, that's pretty good for a double live album. And Bruce is like, oh no, I would have thought we'd be platinum by now. And Rod's kind of like, shut up, shut up. No, that's very good, Bruce. Very good, isn't it, Mick? Oh, whatever. I'm not here, boys,
Yeah.
I forgot why I was telling that story.
No, it was a good story because you've been driven to Chiswick. They were trying to avoid going to Chiswick before they went to Ealing, which is very difficult to do because you do get to Chiswick before you get to Ealing. So they did they probably went on the old North Circular, didn't they?
Was. But here's the thing. I mean, those were empire building days. And I think it's always easy to look back and go, well, you can see, and then this piece came into play and it all worked. Yeah. But Steve built the whole thing. Dave Murray is the only other constant member in that lineup.
Yeah.
And so it was Steve that brought in Adrian, brought in Bruce, brought in
Nico.
Clive Burr, and then Nico. I mean, Clive was still in the group when Bruce joined. So it was still an ongoing process. And in fact, around about the time of Power Slave, it did look for a moment behind closed doors if Nico might be out on his ear.
There's an exclusive revelation from Mr. Mick Wall. Were you again being driven towards Ealing?
No. In
when
fairness,
you overheard Bruce saying to Rod, "Get out."
It was when I was working on their official biography, and Rod told me the story.
Did
it's
he?
in the book, as far as I know.
Tell the story then. Tell the story. That's what we're here for. We're not here for what you think of the album.
Nico McBrain, okay? We used to call him the Mad McBrain. Do you remember? You probably don't remember. We used to call him the Mad McBrain.
I don't think you need to refer to a man with the surname McBrain who's chosen to adopt that name. I don't think you need to append mad to it. I think
Nico is definitely one of the great characters of rock.
Yeah, but he's one of those people who, if you see him coming towards you, you might...
Not if he turns his head sideways.
Yeah, you might go... I wonder if the cab's here.
What, mate? What? Yeah. He was about as far from Bruce as you could get. Even on stage, he'd be as far from...
What was it his girlfriend used? My sweetie
I'm going to tell you the story.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Shut up and let me tell you. So
she was she was even referred to that in Kerrang, wasn't she? My sweetie, or whatever her name
that would be in one of the stories I wrote. So Nico joins in time for Peace of Mind.
Right.
And he plays brilliantly on it. Peace of Mind, at that point, for Steve anyway, was the best Maiden album yet.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, just to interrupt really briefly.
Oh, my God.
Before we get into Nico, is that, he was a brilliant drummer. It sounds like he got about 10 arms when he's doing his stuff on Maiden records. So, yes, let's get that clear. Great drummer, interesting character.
I'm glad we got that clear. That was definitely worth interrupting the story just to get that clear. Yeah,
it was.
So
get on with it.
He, fucking trying. So Nico comes in. Peace of Mind also begins with a great flurry of drums, the first track. But Peace of Mind also, not only is it Steve's favourite album so far, it becomes their first genuine platinum record in America. Yeah. What are you doing on your phone?
I'm just looking.
Don't be looking on the phone. Don't be looking. I got it all covered here, mate.
Oh,
why are you looking at the time when I'm talking? But when you're talking, we've got to shut up and listen. So Nico comes in as they're hitting a crest of a wave, and suddenly this guy who has spent, he's well into his 30s at this point. He's spent most of his career not in successful rock bands. Suddenly he's in one of the most successful in the world, and they're getting bigger.
Yeah.
And like all drummers, he is an exuberant personality, shall we say. And he kind of takes it to the limit on the Power Slave tour, which in fairness, sent them all mental. I mean, it was 13 months long. In those days, they would do 4 or 5 shows back to back. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Month in, month out, just forever and ever and ever in those days. And Nico starts to go a bit over the top. And I just remember there were lots and lots of occasions, but the one you were referring to, I remember we got to LA, staying at the Sunset Marquee, where not only do they have nice suites, but they have villas.
They have it all.
They have it all. But because it's LA becomes where you bring the wives and girlfriends. You bring the wags.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, it's great shopping. It's great weather. It's great hotels, everything. It's not like being in, Fargo or somewhere like that.
No, you don't go, listen, we're doing a show in Idaho. Yeah. Let's get everybody out there because they'll love that.
Yeah.
No, you've all been nice, good girls and supported us and don't moan too much. And so here we go. Here's LA. Go shopping. And
traditional relationships.
Absolutely. And Nico's got a new girlfriend, American girlfriend, whose name I can't remember at the moment, but he calls her his Sweet Pea.
Sweet Pea, that's
Hello,
it.
Sweet
that's
Pea.
It, Sweet Pea.
And he gets it, and poor old Tony Wiggins, the tour manager, is giving out the room keys. And, of course, I'm last, which is fair enough. But I'm standing with Tony as he gives me my key.
Be there,
all the guys have...
They were meant to have dropped you in Ealing. You're in fucking LA.
They've all run to their rooms. I'm run to your rooms. And Tony and me are chatting, because the kids have gone, so now the grown-ups can talk. And next thing, Nico bursts through the door. Oi! I ain't having it! And Tony's like... Tony was very mildly spoken. Yeah. His previous gig had been with Gilbert O'Sullivan. I think I told you he used to walk around in his slippers and a cardigan.
Yeah.
Yes, Nico. Yeah. Yes, Nico. Some people used to call him Nico. I ain't having it. So what's the problem? He goes, my room is a fucking dump, innit? It's not good for my sweet pea. I'm not going to show that to my sweet pea. And Tony's like, it's exactly like everybody else's room. Well, it ain't good enough. So they have to move Nico to another room at the hotel, which is probably identical again, but maybe just a slightly different
the
shape.
bed's pointing in a different direction.
Balcony overlooking the pool or something like that. That's better. Don't let it happen again. So he was kind of a bit full on.
Yeah.
And Rod told me there came a moment on that tour where he literally had to put Nico on the tour bus one night while the others are in the show. And said to him, right, let's have a drink. One for you, one for me. And he said, right, Nico, if you don't, I don't know the exact words, but Rod told me, he said, basically, Nico, unless you get your act together, you're out of the band.
Oh, right.
And it wasn't the playing. Because one of the reasons Steve loved Nico's playing, particularly live, was, you notice with Clive Burr, for instance, Steve would always be over at the drums going to him, speed up! Quicker, faster! You know, even though Clive would be playing the exact same beat the song is supposed to be at. Well, Nico never needed any encouragement. Steve would be over there going, faster! Nico, fucking right! So, for instance, on Power Slave, I think it was Flight of Icarus, and Bruce had written that one specifically so it would get on American radio, because it had that shuffle. It was like, dun, 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 dun. And then, but when they did it live, it'd be dun 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 faster dun 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 dun. You know, so
was that the one that went "Fly on your way like an eagle"? Was that one?
No, I think that was "Fly Like an Eagle." Listen, isn't every Maiden song got the line "Fly on your way like an eagle"?
Well, it could be conceivably, yeah. But you could see Icarus taking off for the sun. And Bruce went fly on your
Aces High. Aces
like
High.
an eagle.
Oh, yeah, maybe, yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. And if it isn't, it should be.
Should be. Should be.
Tip for the new album, boys.
Yeah. See, that's the great thing about Maiden is their aesthetic can be fitted.
No, I think you're thinking of Peace of Mind because there was a track called Where Eagles Dare.
Well, what I was going to say is the great thing about Maiden is their aesthetic can be fitted to any part of history. They can do ancient Egypt and they can do the Battle of Britain.
On the same album.
On the same album, and it fits together.
Aces High
It's
was
an amazing
Battle of Britain.
thing. It's an amazing thing. Yeah.
Aces High.
I know, that's why
Battle of
that's
Britain.
why I said it. That's
Aces
why
High.
So
Battle of
someone's
Britain.
put a penny in the slot. You said chirped up
And then
with a
Rhyme of the Ancient Man.
Yeah.
Faster!
and then all you have to do is to turn that into a song about the Russian Revolution. Is
And
get
you've got-
Nico to do a different sort of here come the Cossacks and the people that, you know, the what do you call
I
it?
have
That was the
no
Cossacks, wasn't it? Who did
idea
Mother Russia, Dance of the Tsars, you know.
Does it really go Dance of the Tsars?
Of course it does.
Of course it does. My favourite, though, was Alexander the Great. He was really great, and his name was Alexander.
Yeah, this is Steve paid attention in history. I liked history. I didn't like maths.
So I'm just going to make a quick note here. Note
To self.
that everything note to you.
Yes.
Everything we're saying now relates to era one. Now, when it
Yes.
comes to era two, here I'll kick it off, and then you can run with it. For me, era one ended when Adrian left and they brought Yannick Gers in.
Right,
Because Yannick, fabulous guitarist.
Heavy metal credentials Yannick had, didn't he? Because he'd been in Gillan.
He'd been in Gillan, and well, there you go. We're talking about Diano's hair. No one, and I did Gillan's PR when Yannick joined. No one in Gillan had long hair. Yannick had proper long hair.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the reasons Steve liked him as well, because he really did look. Because Adrian was another short hair.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit modern.
Yeah.
You know.
Was he the one who liked going fishing, or was that?
Yeah, that's Adrian.
Yeah.
Now, they did Fear of the Dark. They did
Fear
Bring
of
Your
the Dark,
Daughter to the
Fear
Slaughter.
of the Dark. That was a good one.
I wasn't keen on it. But
Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter was their number one, wasn't it? Which Rod pushed for. I think he Rod Smallwood.
It was Bruce Dickinson's solo track.
Yeah, one of his many talents was he was the one who sussed that there was a kind of sales lull when people used to sell reasonable amounts of records and singles.
Yeah.
That in between Christmas and New Year, there was a week where, you
could sell a tenth of that amount and still go up the charts.
Yeah, and Maiden would always sell the same amount of singles because their fan base was incredibly loyal. So if Rod did all the formats, which he used to do, be a 7-inch and a 12-inch.
Same people buying the same record.
Exactly, everything would have a different reason to buy it, a different track or a free badge or something or other. And he realised that in this week, if he did that, applied those principles that week, Maiden would get to number one.
They were number one for 3 weeks, but here's what used to stick in my craw. Top of the Pops, which if you don't live in Britain, it's hard to understand how influential that show was. They were the chart show every Thursday night, and it was whatever was in the charts, so all kinds of music. And I remember timing it, because the first time I saw Top of the Pops, didn't have them on the show, or they wouldn't go on the show. So they showed a filmed clip, right? And the first time, it's the number one. The whole show builds up to and this week's number one, and that's the big moment. It didn't seem to be on for long. So the second week, they're number one again. And I thought, that's weird. I'm going to time it. So I did. Okay. Do you know how long they were on for?
Dear BBC, this was what your letters
I think you will find.
Dear Points of View, dear Barry Cryer,
dear Top of the Pops. Do you know how long they were on for?
1 minute and 45 seconds.
Really close. 1 minute 20.
Bloody hell. That is
1
bad.
minute. That is really... So you basically just got, bring your daughter... and they wouldn't even have the beginning. They would just cut to the band on the chorus. Bring your daughter
to the slaughter. To the slaughter. And it's a tremendously festive song, apart from anything else. Who doesn't, at Christmas, have that very sentiment?
I know I do.
Yeah, I do.
And I'm not a Christmas guy.
No, you're not a Christmas
I'm definitely not a festive kind of guy.
No.
I tend to think a lot of suicide when it comes to Christmas. As do we all, let's be fair.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, you're more of a Venom man. Venom, of course, released the great Black Christmas as their Christmas single, which was a great song. It went, Black Christmas, Devil's Eve. Brilliant song. Good old Kranos. We've
got to do one on black metal.
We should do a cover.
A cover?
We should put a record out. That's what we should do. Me and you, we should put a record out.
Yes. We will look into the actuality in due course. But my point is this. Bruce
had
second
era of Bruce now.
Bruce had his crack at solo stardom, and it flopperooned.
Yeah.
It flopperooned. He did some good music, but no one cared.
What was at that strange time, wasn't it? Because I remember interviewing him. Was it Tattooed Millionaire or something?
He was still in the band when he did. That was his first solo when he had all the young dudes on it.
Yeah, that's right.
And Tattooed Millionaire was a not so thinly veiled dig. Arry.
Yeah. But it was just, I think it was at that weird time when maybe grunge was coming along. I don't know.
What, the first solo album?
No, or one of whatever one I interviewed.
When he leaves in 93.
I'm thinking now it wasn't. Yeah, well, there you go, middle of grunge.
He leaves in 93 because he wants to be part of the revolution.
Yeah. And like all of those people who wanted to be part of the revolution, it transpired that the revolution did not want them to be part of it. Motley Crue and so on. Yeah, because it was really funny. Because at one end you have Motley Crue and Bruce going grunge. At the other end you had people like Bon Jovi sort of going slightly grunge. It was just insane.
Well, Bon Jovi didn't go grunge.
But cutting their hair and all of a sudden we weren't. Yeah. It's my life.
And reconfiguring that Whitney Houston song. I will always love you. Bon Jovi. Always and I will love you. I think it went like that.
That's how I was going to go.
Yeah. Def Leppard didn't go grunge, but they definitely
wavered.
With slang, they definitely had a shot at doing something different. Maiden didn't really do anything different. They got Blazin, who at the time I thought, what a great choice. He's kind of somewhere between Di'Anno and Dickinson. geezer like Paul, but more of that sort of slightly operatic.
Yeah, he could do the heavy metal stuff. Yeah.
But both of these things do not take off. And suddenly, by 1999, Bruce is back. Bruce's caveat is, I'm coming back, but I want Adrian coming with me. Harris's caveat is, all right, we'll have them back, but we're not getting rid of Yannick.
Yeah. So we end up like Leonard Skinner with about 10 guitarists.
Well, I don't think any of those reasons were musical. I think they were political. You know, Yannick and Steve, you know, bonding, and Adrian and Bruce had always written together. They wrote 2 Minutes to Midnight together and lots of that stuff. So it was kind of a compromise. And that, for me, is where things just became a little bit too much, because it really... Iron Maiden were born to be over the top, and now they're sort of over the top.
Yeah.
And I just think it was for me, it's still a case of too many cooks spoil the broth. Yannick's fabulous, but you don't need Yannick, Dave Murray, and Adrian Smith. Whereas Dave and Adrian, there's a great counterpoint. Dave being the Blackmore fiend, and Adrian not really being about the solo, being about the song.
Yeah.
And it worked. I thought that balance was beautiful. Also, after Yannick joined, you got this weird spectacle of poor old Davey Murray trying to keep up. Because you got this whirling Adrian never used to move. Now suddenly you've got a whirling dervish, and poor old Dave's on his toes.
Yeah, but then I suppose that it came at the right time in that they're now, like all bands of that era, essentially a legacy act, aren't they? And they do fantastically well on the road. They clean up whenever they go on tour, piloted by Bruce, which, I mean, I never really got that. I wouldn't do that. It's. I don't know. I wouldn't want the bloke... You know,
who just finished his gig, flying us to the next
however much energy he's got. So just take the weight off, mate. You know, just...
There would be a co-pilot, though, wouldn't there?
You'd fucking
hope so, wouldn't you? Yeah.
I think it's illegal to fly massive planes. Isn't there a
757?
Well, no,
740s. Actually, that reminds me. I was thinking of this before we started today, and I want you to clear this up for me, knowing that you are a big Saxon fan.
Yes.
747, Strangers in the Night.
Yeah.
One of the great rock songs.
For God's sake, get the ground lights on.
But the words perplex me.
Yeah.
So it goes, 747,
coming down in the night.
No, hang on.
Coming down in the night.
Oh, yeah. And then it goes... Strangers in the night. This is the bit. Strangers in the night, both on separate flights, going nowhere. But what I'm thinking is, they're on different flights in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and they're both crashing.
they've never met.
Yeah, but they're both crashing.
Is that what the link is?
I don't know. Doesn't mean it's like...
Two planes don't crash at the same time.
No, they don't. No, it's like tonight,
so how can you
there's going to be a jailbreak somewhere in this town. Well, yeah, presumably at the jail.
Yeah, but you don't go, well, I'm breaking out of this jail and a complete stranger is breaking out of that jail and we've somehow got something in common.
Sounds good, doesn't it? Strangers in the night.
Yeah, but not...
747.
Yeah, but Strangers in the Night, not both on separate flights.
No, because then you just wouldn't know each other. You're strangers anyway.
I'm on a plane in the night, a stranger, and I'm crashing, but I'm connecting with this other plane that is also crashing with someone on it I've never met.
Yeah.
We're both on separate flights
going nowhere.
No, it should have been strangers in the night,
dun, 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 dun.
Both wearing tights. Going nowhere.
That'll be your fantasy. I don't know about everyone else's.
Anyway, now my dear friend Kevin Shirley, who has produced all the Era 2.
my dear friend,
my very good friend.
He moved to Australia to avoid you.
No, I know you're listening, Kevin.
Yeah.
And my love, runs deep. Kevin has produced all of those records, and I love Kevin's work. And I love
Caveman.
And I love the Maiden.
Yeah.
But I'm going to throw it out there again. Name me one song that you could put in the same category as Can I Play With Madness, Number of the Beast, Run to the Hills, Wasted Years, Stranger in a Strange Land. I mean, I could go on.
So your point is there are now enough people in Iron Maiden to come up with a decent song.
But they don't.
But they've failed to do so.
Well, they come up with great music, but it's epically proportioned.
Yeah. But it's just, I mean...
And Kevin was saying he literally has to find room for all three guitarists.
Even were they to come up with another Wasted Years or another Run to the Hills, another hit, it wouldn't be a hit in today's climate. It wouldn't be a hit because the people that buy Iron Maiden records wouldn't go out and buy it in the sense that would get it.
No, I'm not letting them off the hook for that because they've been back together since, 98, 99?
I don't know.
Yeah, we still had record shops in those days. It still had Top of the Pops in those days.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I'm sure if you asked Rod would make the point very forcefully. That
he would, but it wouldn't mean anything, because, he's their greatest defender of the faith, isn't he?
He is. He's the 9th member of the band.
Okay, so I'm going to let them off the hook a little bit because I've seen them live.
You're their official biographer.
Former
official. You resigned from that post.
No, I didn't resign so much.
When that car pulled up in Ealing, mate, you were fired out the fucking back doors by the bins. That was the end of that.
No.
But lads, I'm your official biographer. As the tail lights disappear towards
going nowhere,
towards the bright lights of Chiswick. Twinkling on the river where all the rich people
very much so. Very
much so.
So Maiden, the future. We've been hearing they're going to retire for about 10 years.
Doesn't matter if there's a future, does it? I mean, it's
every time Kevin does an album with them, I keep
it's
getting
the
this,
last album. That'll be Rod.
Don't tell anybody, but this is the last album.
Is the last
They've been
one.
telling everybody for 15
the
years.
farewell tour. That was Rod at Donington. Your only chance to see them this year is at Donington. The Monday after Donington, here comes Frankel. We're just so... We want to reward our loyal fans for coming to Donington with a full UK tour.
Oh, God bless them.
God bless them.
See, my fist is in the air
and
again.
it'll be called the Celebrate Us at Selling Out Donington UK tour.
Yeah, for those that couldn't make it.
Yeah.
For the little
and
people.
Those that could. And if you were there, you can still come.
Yeah. In fact, we need you to come again and again and again.
But you can still come. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, just to be clear, can you even name one album in the second era?
But I can't name any Iron Maiden albums.
Can't you?
Well, I can do the early ones. Only
Ah.
because you said them earlier. I remember one of Blaze's was called Virtual 11 or something.
I'm talking era 2, Bruce Dickinson.
I can't. That's weird, isn't it? They must have made a big hoo-ha about the comeback one, but
yeah.
What was that called?
Oh, I'm not going to tell you if you don't know.
I don't know.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think of that?
Yeah.
Okay, another thing you did say to me is that they are the greatest heavy metal band
with the initials IM ever.
No, it isn't what you said. You said, when we were talking about this on another occasion, you said the greatest heavy metal band ever.
No, I don't think I did.
Yes, that's exactly
I don't think I
I'm going to hold you to that.
The greatest British heavy metal band ever.
Oh, okay.
No, because they're not as good as Black Sabbath. There's no way you could trump Sabbath. And that's not a bad thing from Maiden. It's a thing of era. It's in the same way that people go on and on about the Beatles. It's not because they're the best ever. It's because they're the first.
No. That's because they are the best ever.
They're really not.
They invented everything.
We know that.
They're all roads.
If you get there first,
if we get there first, that would have been Buddy Holly.
But then you can't be. So Maiden can never be, the bands that came before them. So they can never be the greatest heavy metal band of all time.
Oh, I'll make some claims for them. I think they're way better than Jethro Tull. Way better than Golden Earring.
Let me bring you songs from the wood.
Yeah,
we should do a Jethro Tull.
No, we're definitely never doing Jethro Tull. I used to do 2 shows a week on
the
Planet Rock.
And
the guy
gallery.
who was in charge of the station, I think had once bummed the singer or something. Because fuck me, every show you have to play
Aqualung, my friend, don't you start away uneasy. You know, Harry, listen, I went to Ian Anderson's house.
Oh, because he's another one. You live in fucking Stella Street, don't you?
I went to Ian
He
Anderson.
lives near you, doesn't he? He fucking lives.
Well, at the time he lived in Beaconsfield.
Roger Taylor, Russ Ballard, John Houghton, Brian May, and then down the end of the street,
Ian Anderson.
Obviously.
Ian Anderson lived in a place, it was so big it had 2 addresses. It did.
I'm going to take
like
your 2 addresses.
Over here, that was 1 address. It had an entrance over somewhere. Amazing guy, yeah.
And you went there?
I went there, yeah.
Of course you did.
Interviewed him,
on your quad bike.
It was good. No, I didn't go on a quad, but I'm trying to think what album he
And a
done.
horse. You went on a fucking horse, didn't you?
Yeah.
Ian! John! Hail Hearty!
He had his jodhpurs on.
Of course
I've interviewed 2 rock stars who were wearing jodhpurs. One of them was Ian Anderson, the other one was David Coverdale.
Does he also live in your fucking street? He does,
old
doesn't
Cov. You know where old Cov lives. You probably.
He is a citizen of the world.
He is, but he lives.
Jonathan.
He's a citizen of the world, but he doesn't live in any old part.
He
of the world,
lives
does he?
in
He lives
my
in-
heart,
Yeah.
Jonathan.
So anyway, I think we can conclude this episode
Yes.
by saying Maiden, definitely better than Jethro Tull, definitely better than all the other new wave of British heavy metal bands.
Yes, of course. Yes.
And still one of your all-time favourites.
Still one of my favourites, even though I don't know their songs or albums or who's in the band.
Yeah. Well, I do.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review, share it with a friend, or plain old subscribe wherever you listen to it. To get you some conversation online, follow us on Twitter at GetchaPod. Until next time.
This has been a No Filter Media production.
Say what you want.